Hey guys, today we're diving into another truly horrifying case. If you want to support my channel, make sure to subscribe and stay active. It really helps me out. I'd be super grateful for that. Let's get started. On a cold February morning in 2021, staff at Sharon Public School in Kenton, Massachusetts, noticed something unusual. Their colleague, 23-year-old Sandra Birchmore, had been out of touch for several days. Given the recent snowstorm, a delay might have seemed normal at first, but by the fourth day, it was clear something was wrong. Concerned colleagues contacted emergency services, unaware that they were about to set in motion one of the most puzzling and shocking investigations, where an innocent life became entangled in secrets, manipulation, and hidden truths. Sandra Birchmore was born on May 13, 1997, in the small town of Stone, Massachusetts. Her early years were far from easy. Her mother, Denise, battled serious health issues throughout her life, which not only affected her physical well-being, but also placed a significant strain on the family's finances. Sandra's father was completely absent. He played no role in her upbringing or financial support. The responsibility of raising Sandra fell on Denise, her longtime partner, and her maternal grandmother, Grace. Despite their struggles, the family did their best to create some sense of stability for Sandra. Her grandmother, Grace, played a crucial role in her upbringing, often stepping in as a caregiver when Denise had to undergo treatments or faced health setbacks. Growing up in a household where the adults were constantly navigating life's hardships, Sandra learned independence and responsibility at a young age. From early childhood, Sandra had a deep admiration for public service and was particularly drawn to people in uniform, whether police officers or members of the military. This admiration was reinforced by the fact that many of her maternal relatives served in law enforcement or the armed forces. This environment instilled in Sandra a strong respect for the law and a desire to be part of something greater than herself. Her interest in police work first emerged at the age of 8 when she was enrolled in a program called Respect. This initiative aimed to teach young participants civic responsibility, communication skills, and respect for those around them. It was there that she first began interacting with police officers, further solidifying her aspirations. By the time she turned 12, Sandra joined the Police Explorers program. Established in the 1970s, this initiative provided hands-on experience for young people interested in careers in law enforcement. Under the guidance of experienced officers, participants learned the fundamentals of police work, safety protocols, and emergency response strategies. Sandra remained involved in the program from 2010 to 2016, showing an impressive level of dedication. Those close to her recalled how seriously she took her training and how much time she devoted to perfecting her skills. This was more than just a passing interest. Sandra saw the program as a stepping stone toward her ultimate goal. However, her journey was far from easy. In 2016, at the age of 19, Sandra experienced a devastating loss. Her mother, Denise, passed away. This was a tremendous blow for her. After Denise's passing, Sandra's aunt, her mother's sister, stepped in to provide support and guidance. This heartbreaking event coincided with the conclusion of her time in the Police Explorers program, leaving a profound impact on her life. Her dreams of a career in law enforcement gradually took a back seat as she faced new personal challenges. After finishing high school, Sandra searched for her path. She enrolled in college prep courses, planning to pursue a nursing degree. Despite shifting her focus, her childhood admiration for police culture remained strong, and she stayed in touch with many individuals from the Police Explorers program over the years. Life's challenges and early losses didn't break Sandra, but they made her vulnerable to manipulation. The influences around her and the constant struggle to overcome hardships shaped her character and ambitions, yet they also left her seeking validation and support from those she viewed as authority figures. This longing for guidance would ultimately play a crucial role in her tragic fate. In 2020, after finishing high school, Sandra Birchmore moved to Kenton, a town in Norfolk County, Massachusetts. With a population of around 25,000, Kenton was known for its safe and family-friendly environment, making it an attractive place to settle. For Sandra, this move marked a fresh start. She secured a job as a teacher's assistant at Sharon Public School. Her role involved working with students who had special needs, providing support while also earning a steady income. Though this position wasn't her ultimate goal, she saw it as a stepping stone toward a better future. Her ambitions were closely tied to her experience caring for her mother, which had instilled in her a deep desire to help others. To pursue this passion, she enrolled in preparatory courses for college, balancing her studies with her job in hopes of advancing her career. Her colleagues described Sandra as outgoing and friendly, but at times, her behavior seemed somewhat immature. She tended to share personal details, even with people she barely knew, which made some coworkers uncomfortable. Still, she had a genuine love for her students and put effort into her responsibilities, despite having limited experience. Her combination of warmth and emotional openness drew people toward her, but it also sometimes led to misunderstandings. Sandra viewed her time at Sharon Public School as a temporary phase on her way to fulfilling her dreams. She was full of plans, preparing for significant changes in her life. However, her trusting nature and eagerness to connect with those around her made her vulnerable, something that would later play a devastating role in her story. Sandra Birchmore first met Matthew Farwell in 2010 when she was 13 years old. At the time, she was part of the Police Explorers program, where Matthew, then 27, served as one of the instructors. He quickly became an influential figure in her life. Their communication began within the structure of the program, but gradually extended beyond it. By the time Sandra turned 15, she started receiving personal messages from Matthew. These conversations marked the beginning of a relationship shaped by manipulation and psychological pressure. As someone older and more experienced, Matthew skillfully leveraged his position to establish control over her. Over time, their relationship evolved but became increasingly unhealthy. Matthew grew excessively possessive, showing an unusual interest in her personal life and restricting her independence. He insisted on knowing her whereabouts at all times and pressured her to provide constant updates about who she was with. Eventually, he began using technology to monitor her movements, further deepening her dependence on him. As his jealousy and need for control escalated, they were accompanied by bursts of aggressive behavior. His tone often turned threatening, and any attempt Sandra made to assert her independence was met with resistance. Matthew exerted pressure on her, expecting absolute compliance with his demands, and he viewed any disagreement as an act of betrayal. Despite the growing tension, Sandra continued to see Matthew as someone she could trust. She genuinely believed their relationship could improve and often found ways to justify his behavior. However, his influence over her only intensified, gradually undermining her confidence and limiting her freedom. What had started as a friendship eventually became a toxic and inescapable dynamic. The beginning of 2021 marked an important period for Sandra Birchmore. She was preparing for motherhood. Despite the difficulties she faced, she approached the future with enthusiasm. Her apartment began filling up with baby essentials she had ordered online, including newborn clothing, infant care items, and decorations for a baby shower she was planning. She was eager to celebrate this new chapter of her life with her loved ones, carefully organizing every detail of the event, from decorations to the guest list, despite her financial constraints. Her excitement and energy surprised her relatives, who noted how inspired she seemed by the idea of becoming a mother. Sandra had also scheduled a newborn photography session, intending to capture special moments after her baby's arrival. This decision further highlighted her commitment to her pregnancy and her anticipation of what was to come. However, those close to her began noticing signs of inner turmoil. Much of this stress stemmed from her strained relationship with Matthew Farwell, who remained a significant presence in her life, but was increasingly a source of anxiety. In the days leading up to the tragic events, Matthew's behavior became unusual. He visited Sandra's apartment, claiming he wanted to help her prepare for the baby's arrival. He asked for access to her home, requesting both a key and the door code, explaining that he wanted to be available in case of an emergency. While inside, he seemed particularly interested in her bedroom closet, paying close attention to the space. After he left, Sandra confided in a friend, mentioning that Matthew had been acting strangely. Despite her concerns, She tried to rationalize his behavior, convincing herself that his intentions were rooted in concern. This would be the last time she openly expressed doubt about his actions. On February 4, 2021, colleagues at Sharon Public School contacted the police after Sandra had been out of touch for several days and failed to show up for work. A heavy snowstorm had recently disrupted movement throughout the city, keeping many employees at home, but Sandra's absence raised concerns. Attempts to reach her by phone were unsuccessful. Soon, officers were dispatched to her apartment for a welfare check. When officers arrived, they knocked repeatedly and rang the doorbell, but there was no response. A distinct odor coming from inside the apartment quickly raised red flags, as officers recognized it as a sign of decomposition. Given the circumstances, they made the decision to force entry. Inside the apartment, officers found Sandra in the bedroom. She had been discovered hanging from a closet door using a belt. The condition of her body suggested she had been deceased for several days. At first glance, the scene did not appear suspicious. The initial police report stated that there were no signs of a struggle. Furniture remained undisturbed, and the general disorder in the apartment was consistent with Sandra's usual living habits. However, when her relatives were allowed into the apartment after the body was removed, they noticed several discrepancies that cast doubt on the initial findings. One of the first things they observed was a load of wet laundry inside the washing machine, indicating that Sandra had been going about her normal routine shortly before her passing. On the table, there were unopened packages containing baby essentials, delivered just days before the incident. Another troubling detail was a broken necklace found near where she had been discovered. Strands of Sandra's hair were tangled in the chain, which suggested possible physical interference. Her relatives informed the police that Sandra never removed this necklace. She wore it at all times, even while sleeping or showering. This detail raised doubts about the conclusion that she had taken her own life. An even more alarming discovery was her phone. Sandra used her phone daily and was rarely seen without it. However, records showed that it had been powered off a full day before her passing and was never turned back on. Concerned by these inconsistencies, her family insisted on a more thorough investigation, believing there was evidence of outside involvement. With these new findings and growing concerns about her relationship with Matthew Farwell, law enforcement was forced to reconsider their initial assessment. His behavior in the days leading up to her passing, his request for access to her apartment, and his unusual demeanor during his final visit raised serious questions. These revelations marked the beginning of a deeper investigation to uncover what truly happened inside Sandra's apartment in those fateful days. The last recorded activities of Sandra Birchmore took place on the evening of February 1st, 2021. Surveillance cameras captured her returning home from work around 5 p.m. A short while later, she stepped outside to retrieve a package containing baby clothes she had ordered. Afterward, Sandra was seen once again on video, clearing snow off her car parked outside her residence. At 5:46 p.m., she went back inside her apartment, marking the last time she was seen alive. Later that evening, another key figure in this case appeared on the security footage. Around 9 p.m., Matthew Farwell entered the building. He was seen walking into the lobby, heading up to Sandra's floor, and spending approximately 30 minutes inside her apartment. Footage showed him dressed in heavy winter clothing with a mask covering his face. While the cold weather could explain his attire, the way he deliberately concealed his identity seemed unusual. After a brief visit, Matthew left the building. The next day, Sandra did not show up for work and stopped responding to messages. Federal investigators took over the case, conducting a full review of the initial findings. One of the first concerns was the superficial crime scene assessment and the overlooked details. Agents soon discovered that Sandra had been actively preparing for motherhood, ordering baby supplies, planning a baby shower, and even booking professional photo shoots. These details contradicted the idea that she had intentionally harmed herself. Further suspicion arose from the nature of the marks found on her body, which did not align with a typical case of self-inflicted harm. While analyzing Matthew's phone records, investigators recovered deleted messages that revealed a long history of manipulation. It was also confirmed that Sandra was pregnant with Matthew's child, a key factor in the unfolding tragedy. At the time of her passing, Sandra was in her 3rd month of pregnancy, and this revelation significantly impacted her relationship with Matthew. He not only denied being the father, but also exhibited aggressive behavior, pressuring her both psychologically and physically. After Sandra informed him about the pregnancy, his attitude shifted. First, he attempted to distance himself, but later, realizing the possible consequences, he reinitiated contact. His sudden interest in reconnecting with Sandra raised further suspicion following her death. Investigators also uncovered that Matthew was married and had 3 children. Sandra was aware of his family situation, and in the fall of 2020, she learned that his wife was expecting their 3rd child. This discovery deeply affected her, and she confided in a close friend about the emotional distress it caused. In one of her messages, Sandra mentioned that she intended to tell Matthew's wife about their relationship. However, she ultimately never went through with it. When Sandra discovered her own pregnancy, she informed Matthew, but his reaction was hostile. He not only questioned whether he was the father, but also made it clear that he had no intention of acknowledging the baby. This led to growing conflicts between them. His behavior became increasingly erratic, and Sandra confided in those close to her about the pressure and threats she was experiencing. This dynamic played a crucial role in her fate and became a major focus of the investigation into her passing. Further examination of their messages revealed that Matthew had repeatedly monitored Sandra, expressed jealousy, and made threatening remarks. Even more concerning was the discovery that he may have used his professional position to exert influence over her. The investigation uncovered a much deeper issue. Sandra was not the only victim. A review of the Police Explorers program archives, where Matthew Farwell had served as a mentor, revealed numerous cases of inappropriate relationships between instructors and participants. Sandra had joined the program at age 13, and her personal involvement with Matthew began when she was just 15. This was not only an ethical violation, but also a serious offense given the significant age difference. A broader investigation into the Police Explorers program exposed systemic failures that enabled misconduct. Since its inception in the 1970s, there had been little oversight regarding the actions of mentors, creating an environment where some instructors exploited their authority. In addition to Matthew, other officers involved in the program were also suspected of inappropriate behavior. Among them were Matthew's brother William and their superior, Robert Devine. The investigation ultimately uncovered over 200 cases of misconduct, many of which had remained hidden for decades. FBI agents also discovered that a police officer had received an anonymous tip about potential misconduct in January 2021, but failed to file an official report. Instead, he privately warned Matthew, prompting a sudden shift in his behavior. From that point on, Matthew began deleting messages and attempting to rebuild Sandra's trust, moves that investigators believed were meant to prevent exposure. What exactly transpired inside Sandra's apartment remains unknown, but forensic evidence allowed investigators to reconstruct a likely sequence of events. The conversation may have escalated into a confrontation when Sandra once again brought up her pregnancy. She could have been pressing Matthew for acknowledgement or support, which posed a significant risk to him if exposed. The broken necklace found near her body suggested that a struggle had taken place. Investigators theorized that at some point, Matthew used force to overpower Sandra. Her phone was turned off shortly after he entered the apartment, leading to the possibility that he had deliberately disabled it to prevent her from reaching out for help. Sandra's case not only led to Matthew Farwell's arrest in 2024, but also shed light on widespread issues within regional law enforcement. The Police Explorers program was permanently shut down, but the consequences of its failures continued to impact many lives. This case served as a wake-up call, prompting authorities to reevaluate policies regarding adult mentors interacting with young participants in similar programs. The charges against Matthew Farwell marked the culmination of a long and complex investigation following Sandra Birchmore's death. In August 2024, he was officially arrested and charged in connection with the crime. Prosecutors presented compelling evidence linking him to the events of that night. Key evidence included recovered text messages from his phone, revealing years of manipulation and coercion toward Sandra, as well as surveillance footage confirming his presence at her apartment on the night of the tragedy. Additionally, forensic experts testified that the injuries on Sandra's body did not align with a self-inflicted act, but instead pointed to external force. The charges against Matthew Farwell extended beyond the primary crime. They also included multiple counts of inappropriate conduct involving Sandra during the years when she was underage. Case records indicated that Matthew had used his position as an instructor in the Police Explorers program to exert control over Sandra from a young age. These details, along with other critical evidence, directly undermined his claims of innocence, which he continued to assert even after his arrest. Despite the overwhelming evidence and widespread public outrage, bringing additional suspects to justice proved to be a major challenge. Alongside Matthew, the investigation also implicated his brother William, their superior Robert Devine, and other officers whose actions had come to light during the inquiry. However, while misconduct was established in several cases, formal charges were not filed against most of those involved. This was largely due to a lack of direct evidence or an apparent reluctance within law enforcement agencies to subject their internal system to deeper scrutiny. As of early 2025, the trial against Matthew Farwell was still ongoing. Prosecutors argued that after Sandra was fatally restrained, the perpetrator staged the scene to make it appear as though she had taken her own life, positioning her body on the closet door. However, forensic experts noted inconsistencies. Key physical indicators that would typically be present in such a case, such as specific hemorrhages in the eyes and facial swelling, were missing. This supported the theory that she had been overpowered before the scene was staged. If convicted, Matthew Farwell faced the harshest possible penalty, including the potential for capital punishment. Sandra Birchmore's case was not just a personal tragedy. It became a stark reminder of the urgent need for systemic reforms within law enforcement and increased oversight of programs designed to work with vulnerable individuals. Her memory lived on through the ongoing efforts of her family and activists who continued to push for justice and meaningful change. Thanks for watching, everyone. Your support means a lot to me, and you can help my channel grow by hitting that like button, dropping a comment, and sharing this video. Your engagement really makes a difference. See you soon.